We are Southern Illinois.
Back outside Mayo, low block Rollins. Rollins up aggressively, bucket and one. Rollins Oligbe finished through contact. He'll have an opportunity at a three-point play. Makes it 58-55.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
Three for Steffi, knocks it in. Drew Steffi, he's got another three. It's now a season high, made in threes. 12 of his 17 here in the second half.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Time to hit the road yet again, Saluki Nation, as your Saluki radio crew from their Embassy Suites studios here on the road with the Hall of Famer Ronnie Watson. I am Luke Martin as we break down the most recent win for Saluki basketball, which was Little Rock on Saturday in Banterra, and preview arguably the toughest non-conference game that Southern's going to have the rest of the year, and we'll get into the High Point Panthers. High Point's going to be in that conversation of maybe the best team that Southern will see the rest of the year. Yes, they are that good. Trust us, the Saluki Nation, when we get to those numbers here in a matter of a moment. Coach Watson, though, let's recap what was a positive on Saturday. It wasn't the game that you and I were hoping in terms of it being a unquestionable best game of the year by SIU. But I also think when you factor in fourth game of the week, you're finally home after all that travel throughout the week, and we were really impressed with the length of Memphis on Wednesday. To not play well in the first half, to then switch gears and find a way to win with guys we've not seen in that role yet. To me, even though it maybe wasn't as convincing as everyone would hope, at this point, find a way to win, and the way Southern won it, to me, there is no doubt some positives to take away from that win against Little Rock on Saturday, excuse me.
I will own what I said. I really expected, after going and playing such a difficult road schedule and playing in Florida, then going to Memphis, I for some reason I just felt like we are going to see the best version of this Saluki team, and that wasn't the best version. The first half was, go down in the locker room down 4 actually, and really kind of, I'll use the word struggled, because they turned the ball over. The zone that Little Rock threw out, very smart, and Southern didn't convert transition defense and match up out of transition as well in that first half as how I thought. But to Southern's credit, they made adjustments right away, and in the second half, they got some answers against the zone and got the game back into a even game where they weren't fighting an uphill battle for 2 hours. And then it became to kind of cut through to the chase to the end, it became another 4 3-minute game, and Southern did a nice job. They had some really big plays. One that comes to mind right away was the offensive play of the game was when Rollins Oligbe saved a ball from going out of bounds late in the shot clock. Looked as he caught the ball going out of bounds, looked down into the middle of the floor, and Isaiah Stafford cut right to the right spot. The proper spot, had an angle to receive a pass, caught it, finished the play off, and got the small crowd really excited. And when Banterra gets excited, there doesn't have to be 8,400 people there. That place got excited, and Southern really responded and finished the game off.
It was also good to see Coach Watson, in terms of the second chance points, not hurt Southern in that game against Little Rock. They only allowed 7 second chance points in the game. That's the second lowest of the season. The lowest prior to that was Delaware, 6 points they allowed, which most of those other games, Southern, even if you factor in those two, Southern's almost giving up 14 points per game in second chance opportunities, which that is no question an area that Coach Nagy has talked about with this team moving forward. Kind of one of the areas that I texted you this, and it was not something that I was really trying to find. It's through College Basketball Analytics is the website we go through, and it's a great website. There's more information than you can find what to do with. But one of the areas was you look at the most popular two-man games on the team. And to me, what was staggering to me was Drew Steffi was involved in 3 of the 4, whether he was the one assisting or whether he was the one scoring off of assist. What does that say when one player is involved in 3 of your top 4 two-man games on your roster at this point in the season, which is it a large sample size? It's not a huge sample size, but it's still, seven Division One games, eight Division One games.
It kind of solidifies something I've been seeing with my eyes with Drew Steffi is that he's a big guard that is a willing passer. And on top of that, what's got him into the top 3 out of 4 is that now he's becoming a willing scorer in terms of he realized in Florida, man, to help this team, I've got to do more than be good on the switches, guard my guy on the perimeter. I've got to be willing to be unselfish, which he's always been unselfish. But it's hit him, and he talked to us about it after the game. He realized he's got to step up and score. And no one wants to score more than he does. But to see him go 2 of 9, I believe it was Florida. I think it was not even maybe UAB game or whichever one it was. It was just great to see him, taking the courage to step up and be willing to make the shot, miss the shot, and then have short-term memory and move on. But then he certainly got hot, and he deserved it in the game on Saturday against Little Rock. He got hot from the perimeter. The first half, the game wasn't. I mean, he didn't have anything a game that he wanted. I think he had 4 turnovers in the first half, but man, the second half, he was really the difference in the game for both teams. And then I had a chance to talk to one of the staff members from Little Rock afterwards, and they just talked about Staffy really, proved him wrong in terms of being able to step up and make shots. And what's interesting is after Drew made this zone that Little Rock played was very smart. They're a little shorthanded on number of bodies, but their length is still big. They are very long, and their 1-3-1 zone was a problem until Drew hits 2 threes, and then all of a sudden Little Rock stopped playing that zone. That's something that sometimes I scratch my head because if you're a man-to-man coach and a team makes 2 threes on you, you don't stop playing man-to-man and go to a zone. But I'm not criticizing anything Little Rock did. It's just that shows you that zones have holes in most places. The one area that I mentioned to you in Little Rock zone that I was disappointed Southern couldn't solve was every zone has a hole, with the exception of maybe Syracuse, who plays it so relentless under Jim Boeheim in those era with All-Americans. But zones have big holes for offensive rebounds. It's the reason why coaches don't feel comfortable in staying in the zone because you do give up second chance points. But man, Drew got hot, and then the rest of the team responded. It was really good to see them be rewarded for coming off such a rough road trip.
Those top 4, by the way, as sister to score combinations on the team. Number 1 in terms of points produced from it. Jalen Haynes to Drew Steffi is the number 1. Drew Steffi to Isaiah Stafford is number 2. That's generated 11 points. Damian Mayo to Rollins. Man, Mayo's involved in a lot of those too, and we'll get to him in a moment. Mayo to Rollins was number 3, and then Drew to Davion was number 4. Those are the only 4 combinations right now. And again, that only factors in the Division One data. So that's always kind of the clarification of it. And I think it helps, there, and we talk about this all the time. It's more probably for the basketball junkies that are listening, Coach Watson, but it's just when you can take out non-D1 games, it really gives you a little bit more of kind of the true number feel for what your team is. Because even if you only have one non-D1 game, they can really offset your numbers, even though it's one game. But that's fair enough for those points kind of moving forward. Damian Mayo is a guy I really want to hit on because it's just so much of what he is doing right now for this team. What is really staggering to me is every time I fill this out, Coach Watson, it's not that, he was good a year ago, but 24 assists and 9 turnovers at this point in the year. In that win against Little Rock, he had 3 assists to 1 turnover. There are just so many different areas that Mayo is helping this team in. You just look at, he's already almost reached as many steals this year as he has last year. Last year, in terms of his assists, he ended the year with 63 assists to 42 turnovers. He's got a positive to negative assist to turnover ratio in his career at 147, 109. It's going to be his 100th career game on Wednesday, by the way, when he goes up against High Point. He's just got so much experience. He does so much for this team. And you've even described to me, you just like his look that he has. It's just it's a look that you want your guys to have as you're going through a season.
He has a look of urgency, and that's the word I've been trying to come up with what's different about Damian Mayo. When you look at his numbers, now, first of all, when you look, and I'll lift this up into the screen. When you look at the team's stats, this is the one that I really look at most because I think that when you're looking at individual players on your team, we had a saying, Matt Painter would say it a lot, check your stats. And that was kind of his way of telling guys, your stats will pretty much tell you what your shot selects, what a good shot is. We talk about going from a good shot to a great shot. Your stat sheet will pretty well spell it out for you. And what's really cool, and you go across, I won't bore you with every single number, but his numbers are incredibly efficient, and he's the eighth one in scoring on this list. He's averaging 5.6 points, but he's responsible for so many more points. That's the misleading part of this sheet, is that you can get caught up and you can let yourself believe anything you want with some numbers. And this stat sheet, if you're not careful, you'll say, well, man, Damian's not getting much done. He's eighth on the sheet. No, Damian's getting arguably the most done of anybody when you start looking at his efficiency from his 2-point shooting to his 3-point shooting. He's 4 of 12, 33%, which is the number that you really need to see with a team or an individual when they shoot threes. He's shooting the right number of them. He's shooting 1.5 a game. He's getting to the free throw line, maybe not as much as we hope he will, but as we talked with him earlier this fall, he makes free throws. The number you have that leads the team in assists because he is very much a willing passer. And it's not because he's scared to miss. That has nothing to do with Damian Mayo. He's willing to take the shot, but that number shows you that saying he's willing to pass up a good shot to get a great shot. And he'll hit anybody, but the guy he's really looking for when he's on the court with Davion Sykes, the two seniors, he knows Sykes is a basket cutter, and they both have the sense of where the opening is. Another really important stat is that he and Kelron are tied with 13 steals, which means he has very active hands on defense. You've heard me say on the broadcast, guys are playing with their hands below their waist. When you see any player, whatever level, junior high to pros, and if you see their hands below their waist, they shouldn't be on the floor very long, number one. But secondly, they're no threat to a ball handler. They're no threat to anybody because, you're not that ball handler. You can pretty much just be squared up to the basket because his hands are low. He's not going to take it from you. Well, Damian, he's in a stance. He's in a stance on and off the ball. Those things that he does that don't show up on the stat sheet are also impressive. But getting back to his look, he wants this thing to flip, and he wants to win at a high level here.
Talk about his assist rate, top 500 out of players in the country individually in terms of their assist rate. He's at 21.1% of the possessions in terms of his assist rate on KenPom. You go back to just 2 years ago when he was at Missouri State, his last year there in 2024, his assist rate was right at 7.4. I mean, that shows you how much more he is sharing the basketball. And by the way, the number of possessions that he's used in is up as well. And again, it's offensive rating. I know a lot of this, analytical data can sometimes overwhelm people, and we get it. But what was staggering to me is we talked about the plus minus, and I sent that tweet out of, the importance of guys, and not necessarily importance, but where guys are in terms of plus minus. But you look at right now the top 5 guys in offensive rating for the Saluki team. And again, all these numbers are according to KenPom, and he's got his own metrics, and again, the percentage of possessions and all this stuff weighs in to what their offensive rating is. Number 1 on the team is Jorge at 124.7. Davion Sykes, 120.8. Rollins, 120.5. And Damian Mayo right behind those guys, 116.8. And the majority of those guys, like I said, mixture. Rollins been a starter every game. Damian Mayo's been coming in and starting recently. Right behind him, Jalen Haynes. Caden Hawkins is in there too, but again, his possessions a little bit outweighted just because of he's not been in a ton of games, so his offensive rating is high. But to know that Jorge, Davion, Rollins, Mayo, Haynes, I ain't even gotten to a guy in Kelron House yet, Drew Steffi yet, Isaiah Stafford yet. The bench for Southern has not just been in terms performing from a plus minus and determining the score when they come in, but they're efficient. And to me, that's what has been That's why if you're looking at this, and I haven't, probably said this enough. I sent this out in a tweet a little while ago. Southern's got the toughest, second toughest strength of schedule right now in the valley of what they've done. And those are your numbers from your bench mostly right now. That's got to be encouraging, Coach Watson, for this Saluki team.
I read some data that Mike Kern put out that goes right along with what you're saying about he statted, the different statistics in terms of where the league is right now. And other than the 3-point shooting issue,
Yep.
uh, Southern is in a strong position in this league. There's no one at the top of the league. There's no one, you can say Northern Iowa's really had a good non-conference so far. Belmont obviously had a very good non-conference. Illinois State has kind of come on with it a little bit. And not to slight anyone else, but no one's at the top where, you take a team like Wichita when they ran the table and they were at the top of that thing from the start to the finish, and none of us were rooting for them. But it was what it was, and Southern's team is really in a strong spot with all those things you mentioned. The rebounding is very encouraging. The defensive side is just continues to get better. So I think it's 8 games in, and everyone, it's not apples to apples, but as I said to you earlier today, it's a species of apple. I mean, it may be
Yeah.
the Golden Delicious and whatever other kind there are, but it's getting closer to apples, and it'll really get there in a month, about 2 months from now, toward, this time in January. But really good to see the bench. I remember very few times in my time, I've been with this program directly from the radio to being an assistant coach for 27 years. And you guys all know, they're listening to this. We've had some great teams. We have some that weren't so great. But I don't ever recall with those great teams that we had a bench that was as strong as this bench. Now, what does that say? Does that mean our starters aren't as strong? Yeah, probably. And have we really figured the starter bench thing out? Here's what I know that coach has done a great job with. He's distributed minutes on a 4-4 team right now that's a long way from being where they're going to be. Okay. In the middle of soon to be, after this game at High Point, 6 out of 7 games on the road, and your top 8 guys have minutes distributed between, well, actually, let's just say the top 9, because Haynes, believe it or not, up to this point is only averaging 15.9 minutes, but that number is going to rise with the way he's playing. Or Hayes at just under 14. The other 7 are at between 21 and 28 minutes. So the minutes are well distributed. They're not script. It's not like coaches, playing participation minutes. It's just, I think they've got a really good feel, and everybody's producing. And yet, again, I'll get back. The free throw line is going to get better. That's an area where Southern's at the bottom of the league in terms of percentages, but along with the 3-point shooting. But let's talk about that for a second. I'll say it again. I think Southern's taking smart shots. There's no sense going out and proving something you're not very good with. It's the old check your stats comment. And Southern's going to get better. The Drew Steffies of the world are starting to get more comfortable.
Yeah.
Isaiah Stafford's coming. Jalen Haynes is coming on. Kelron House is going to come on. They're going to get more help at that spot. And in the game of college basketball, you have to have it. One last thing that we mentioned off the air a day or two ago. When I was in college 100 years ago, okay, and I took a basketball theory class from Rick Samuels at Eastern Illinois, a point that he made before the 3-point line is if a team shoots 50% from the field, you're going to have a really good team. Very few teams at that point in the late 70s, early 80s were shooting 50% as a team. And yet I think we trick ourselves into thinking, well, college basketball sure isn't what it used to be. Well, I have to disagree now, because when you look at the efficiency, we'll talk about High Point in a little bit, but Southern's efficiency from their field goal efficiency is 52%. Back in the 80s, the early 80s, man, that puts you at the top of your league. And while the 3-point line is here and it's changed things, I get that. All that said, this is the makings of a good team that's doing the things they do well most of all.
You look at, and one of the points that you were making up, give credit to Belmont and Northern Iowa for doing what they should be doing with their schedules. Northern Iowa's strength of schedule at this point, 288 in the country. You look at Belmont right now, they're 8-0 against a schedule that's 336th in the country, which again is towards the bottom, but they are doing what they should be doing. They're really dominating their games. I mean, to go on the road and beat Charleston 96-73 in their most recent game. They thumped Toledo by 15 on a neutral court. They absolutely clobbered St. Francis on a neutral floor. I mean, Coach Casey Alexander just keeps that thing rolling. So, yes, is it as tough as a schedule as Southern has had? No, but they are also doing exactly what teams that are good are supposed to do. So, and no doubt they're going to get tested. They play Richmond on Wednesday as well. That'll be a good game. It's going to be in Nashville. They still got to play Middle Tennessee as well. So, and of course, the Valley schedule will come, and that's when all that stuff will get figured out too, especially from a Saluki perspective. And as we said, the Saluki strength of schedule right now at 184, Evansville currently has the toughest strength of schedule in the league, and they're at 95. They're top 100 right now in the league for the Purple Aces. They'll be playing Ball State on Wednesday night as well. So before we kind of transition into High Point and this game and the difficulties of it, you know, you were able to catch up with Coach Clayman earlier this week. Coach Clayman, and now, of course, he's in his first season at High Point. You talk about a guy that's got a decorated background, too. I mean, he's been a huge part of this program under Coach Alan Huss, who our fans will probably remember in his days at Creighton. And we talked to him a year ago around this time, a little bit later in December. But he's now the head coach in waiting at Creighton. So it's opened the opportunity for Flynn Clayman to come in and now take over in his first year as a head coach. This is what it's one of the many things that's going to make this such a challenging game on Wednesday night. But the Quabain Center, which opened up in the fall of 2021, which, by the way, it's Tubby and Donna Smith court. Tubby Smith played at High Point, was a tremendous player for, and of course, many folks know him as the head coach for multiple Division I teams. They are 55-14 overall in this building since it opened in 2021. The last 3 seasons in non-conference play, they're 20-2. They have been really hard to beat in their own building, let alone get into the metrics, which we'll get into in a matter of moments. But Coach Clayman, man, he has kept that thing rolling to this point in the year. Coach Watson, I know you enjoyed the conversation that you had with him earlier in the week.
Yeah, he's a Southern California guy. He mentioned the name Walt Hazard. He played for those of you that are my age and enjoyed the basketball in the 60s, 70s, and so forth. Walt Hazard was one of the great players for Coach John Wooden at UCLA that helped them get their thing going. Well, Coach Clayman played for his son in high school, who then went on and was part of a lot of Los Angeles basketball. He was with Phil Jackson with the Lakers and in the NBA. So Coach Clayman has a very strong pedigree. He was part of a very good Southern Utah team that really recruited well, and recruiting is still the lifeblood of all college basketball and all college sports for that matter. He helped Coach Huss put together a very deep group of players. I was kind of kidding him about he's got 19 guys on his team. How in the world did that locker room happen? He said, well, we're actually down one from a year ago. And the way they were able to do that, because I think the limit now is 15, but because they had some walk-ons, they were able to retain those guys on the team. But they have talent. We'll get into that talent when after we hear from Coach. Coach Flynn Clayman joins us. Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So let's go back about a year ago, man. You guys had a great year. You came into Carbondale and played great basketball, got out of there with a double-digit win and very efficient team. Coach Huss is a guy that I've known for quite a long time. You were on the sideline helping him build this program, and you end up winning 29 games in your first NCAA appearance. What was that season like when you look back on it?
Oh, I mean, it was magical season. Got to make history here for the first time ever going to the tournament. That was such a magical moment. Our guys really worked hard all summer. I mean, they went above and beyond. We were close the year before to getting there, and we lost in an overtime close game in the conference tournament. And everybody back, and then the new players last year were just ultra determined to get over the hump, and they made it happen. So it was just a fun ride.
Coach Huss was named coach in waiting. When Coach McDermott steps down, he'll take over at his alma mater, where I tell him every time I see him that he was part of the three-headed monsters and he was setting illegal screens every time. He disagrees. But what was the process like for you once he was named? And was it kind of automatic? Was it something that had been talked about before? Or what happened with that enabled you to move 18 inches over?
I mean, he prepared me well for it. You know, he gave me a lot of responsibility in recruiting and our play calling and whatnot. So he was trying to help prepare me to be a head coach one day. I think it happened a little sooner than either of us expected. But the transition's been smooth because he prepared me well, you know, and he's a really good coach and learning a lot of the things that he took from Greg McDermott. And then I also learned a lot from my previous boss, who's at Bowling Green now, Todd Simon, and just kind of combining all that into what we wanted to do here. It's been a pretty smooth transition over.
I would say smooth. You got a really good team. You're 7-1. The one thing that I asked Kevin Stallings when he was just got his head coaching job at Illinois State a long time ago when I was still an assistant, I asked him what's different from being an assistant to a head coach. What have you noticed that's one of the biggest changes, even though you were prepared, at least you thought, what's kind of surprised you 6 months in?
You know, nothing's really blown me away in terms of being surprised. I think what has surprised me some is just the amount of responsibility for the amount of people that you have. It kind of comes at you like even if you're a really good assistant, you're focused on your job and your thing, and if you handle that well, then all is right for you in your world. Where in this spot, it's very dependent on a lot of other people. You know, the management aspect is a lot different than just managing yourself when you're an assistant. You know, so that's not something that you can be prepared for no matter how much you want to. I've tried my best, and my staff is doing a great job. And I've got some older folks on staff. I've got some guys who've been head coaches and whatnot, and they really help me a ton. So it's been a group effort, I would say, with that. But yeah, that's probably the only thing, you know, that to me that's been just tougher. And there's nothing you can do to prepare for that.
Kevin Stalling said everything is on your plate now. And he had said I'm smiling and nodding my head because he said that to me back in the 90s. He said, man, I was at Kansas and Purdue and I had my hands on everything, but now every decision is on your plate. And that's what you said. I found that out at Southern Indiana when I became the head guy that, you know, if something doesn't work out in recruiting, my name's on that one. So let's talk a little bit about your team. You've got 8 guys back. You brought 11 guys in, 3 freshmen, 8 transfers. What do you value most, both as an assistant coach for quite a while and now as a head coach, in terms of bringing someone to your program?
Well, the it sounds cliche, but the talent really doesn't matter if you don't have the right character of guys in terms of if you're trying to win. Now, a talented guy might get you a game here or there, but in terms of really trying to win across a season, you're going to need some guys who have high character or care about the place they're at, and that's become more and more rare these days with the amount of movement that goes on. There's less and less loyalty to one specific school than not long ago. So you need super high character guys that understand that, hey, if I'm being given something to play at a place like a professional, I owe it to this place to give everything I have back to it. And I think on the flip side, you have some situations where teams have gotten talented rosters, but their guys aren't that kind of character and they're struggling. You know, you see it, you see a lot of teams across college basketball who were preseason this, that, and the other, and they're not there for the group, they're not there for the team. So that's the most important thing. And then obviously secondarily to that is the skill set, the talent. You know, we have very talented players on in terms of a skill set standpoint. I love guys who can dribble, pass, shoot, do all three. I think we've got 5 guys on the court at one time who can do that most of the time. I always value guys who have really good passing numbers, even if they're not crazy assist guys because they're not maybe in the ball screen handling it all the time, but they're willing to make the extra one more pass. Those things say a lot about a guy's character too. And every guy that we got in the portal this year showed me something along those lines just on film, not even talking to them, but from what I saw on their film, we got some really good passers who like to play a team game and share the ball. So you combine those things with high character off the court, there's a good chance of success.
Coach, there are so many ways to evaluate that skill set, that part of the talent. I mean, there's so much metrics, data, statistics out there. Where do you go to really back up someone passing the look test on film? Where do you go to look at those numbers?
I mean, I use them all as tools, but they're not the absolute for me. So some coaches look at them, and whatever that number says is what they think it's going to be for them. I think there's a lot more variables to it. So I use them all as tools, from Ken Palm to Bartorvik to CBB Analytics to, there's a system called DOR, DOAR, that a lot of schools use where it gives you it'll take what a player's done even from the high school days and add up their whole everything they've done over their career, and it kind of spits out to you, okay, this player will be all conference, this player will be a starter. So what I found is those things are often wrong, but they're often right also. So you just use them as a tool, and then you have to use your human ability to look at the context of what they're coming from to try to make the right decisions. Because if you're only using the numbers, you're going to miss on some guys that could be pretty valuable. I've been fortunate enough to have some all conference players that have come that none of those predictive models predicted those things. We just had a good feel for their character and who they were as players, even though they might not have been able to show it for one reason or another. So I use them as tools, but they're not the absolute. But we're certainly into the analytics and the numbers aspect of it. It's just not doesn't make our decisions for us. It's just a tool in our decisions.
I'm an old guy and I kind of do old guy things. I lean back on what I know. I'm going to show something on the screen. How much do you still rely on that statistic when you evaluate your current team?
Very little, honestly. I try to tell people how I view the Ken Palms is it's just a more accurate box score that doesn't lie to you as easily. For example, saying that you got out rebounded by a team or you didn't get that many offensive rebounds, but you shoot 70% from the floor. Well, okay, that's not really telling you the truth. The offensive rebound percentage is what's telling you the truth, right? Okay, we didn't have that many turnovers. Well, the turnover percentage is really a lot more important because if you're playing a team that's pressing the whole game and creating a lot more possessions, it's giving you a better, accurate view, I feel like. So, I'll look at our stat sheet. I always keep an eye on the plus minus. I always keep an eye on all those things. But the more important things to me are the advanced stats of like a Ken Palm, and then the other things that are on the stat sheet like deflections. You obviously have steals on your stat sheet, but how many times are we deflecting the ball? That's not on the stat sheet. How many times does our big guy seal at the rim and create an open layup for us? Well, he doesn't get an assist for that, but that should be as equal as an assist. So that's where the advanced analytics don't even show you, and you got to go to the film. So to be honest, it's less and less important to me that stat sheet. It just because it can lead you the wrong way at times.
You grew up in California. Your high school coach, if I got this right, was connected with Phil Jackson. How much influence did those guys have on your philosophy today?
Yeah, so my high school coach, Rashid Hazard, his dad, Walt Hazard, played for UCLA, and his dad was around our practices. And Rashid was a great high school coach for us. And then after that, he was a assistant coach with the Lakers, and when they won a couple championships, and assistant coach with the Knicks. So he and really the whole Los Angeles basketball community that I grew up around it was an unbelievable group of talent and basketball minds to be around. I probably didn't appreciate it enough at the time, but I was playing against NBA players like almost every other night in high school games. Now it's a little different with the prep schools and stuff. It was still back then you still had your normal high schools with a lot of pros. But just Coach Hazard and really all the guys that helped raise me as a basketball mind in LA were phenomenal.
Walt Hazard, wow, you brought a name back a guy that really helped Coach Wooden get his deal going as well. What did you learn from him and conversations you have as a young guy with Walt Hazard, the guy that was one of my heroes?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, my dad was my grandfather was a recruiter at UCLA for John Wooden, and he was at my grandfather's funeral when he passed away at a young age. And my dad, would drive Coach Wooden to and from his camps every summer, pick him up at his house. And then Walt, when I got to meet Walt, he had a stroke, so he was in a wheelchair and he wasn't the same, and he couldn't talk as easily. But one thing that I took from him, and it's something that I got to remind myself more of, is when I was just an incoming freshman into high school, and didn't have any idea of basketball career that I might have. You know, I just was trying to make my varsity team at that time, and I'm practicing really hard and doing all that. You know, and Walt one day tells me like, "Hey, you got a chip on your shoulder, and you work really hard, and if you keep that up, you're gonna make something of yourself in this game." And I just thought, man, that's Walt Hazard like saying that to me. Like his jersey's up in Pauley Pavilion. Uh, if he's saying that to me, there must be something to it. And that just kind of gave me like confidence. You know, that gave me a little confidence to keep trying to do what I was doing and not quit easily. And there was a lot of times to quit, and I keep thinking back to one of the best players ever in college basketball saying that to me, and so that's just a reminder to me to make sure I'm encouraging guys, you know, and telling them like, hey, might not be exactly what you want right now, but you have the right attributes, the right qualities that if you'll just stick to it and not quit, you'll get somewhere. So that's a moment that I remember from him, and then through his son being our coach, he obviously taught us a ton also.
Coach, let's talk about your team. We were talking about some things that you look for in players, a couple of guys that came with some high accolades. Rob Martin, someone we know from Indiana State, played for Josh Schertz, also for Brad Korn, one of our former players, and now at SEMO. He's your point guard along with Scotty Washington. Those guys were preseason all league, got that attention. Have they lived up to your expectation?
Yeah, I mean, all our guys really have, and including some guys who aren't even in the rotation. We kind of have a stacked team, but we have some very good players who aren't even really getting to showcase what they do. But in terms of Rob, he's been phenomenal to start this year. He's really trying to pride himself on winning habits. His biggest thing when he came here was like, okay, I scored points, I got assists, I checked all the analytical boxes, and my team had a good regular season, but we didn't get over the hump to the tournament. So that's been his big deal, is like do whatever he needs to do to help this team win. And then, you know, Scotty, you brought up Scotty. He's had a little bit of a struggle to start the season, but he's actually has a much better off. This is where we're talking about the numbers. You know, he's averaging less points, but he's about 20 points more efficient per 100 possessions than he was last year. And I don't think he's even shot the ball well yet. And it's because he's really trying to play the game that we want to play, which is better shot selection, getting to the free throw line, you know, catch and shoot threes. So all of our guys are really highly efficient right now. Conrad Martinez is the one who's off the charts. He's the most efficient. I would have to double check today, but as of last night, I guess no games have happened since then. He's the highest, most high efficient player in the country with 19% usage or higher. Number one at 150 offensive rating, which is insane. So to have a guy like that coming off your bench is just such a luxury. I mean, he's a starter on any mid-major team, and I tell him he's our sixth starter here. Really, that's the truth. I mean, we had Keza Jiffa, who you might remember from last year. His first year with us, he was first team all conference, and he was a mid-major All-American for one of the publications, and he came off our bench. You know, and I think Conrad's very much the same for us this year. So we got a deep team. We've got guys eager, ready to perform. And you know, I think they're all living up to what I had hoped they would.
What did you see in Cameron Fletcher? You saw something that people voting in the league didn't see early, and man, is he scoring it! And if talk about efficient, gosh, is he a good player? What did you see when you recruited him from Xavier?
Yeah, so Cam, well, back to the voting thing, like you can't be eligible for the preseason unless you were all conference in the league you came from. So the only guys that we had eligible for that were Rob and Scotty. Now, I think a lot of people were aware that Cam, if he's healthy, is a really good get for our level. He had a couple injuries. It's really all we're talking about here. You know, he had a couple knee injuries, and then when he went to Xavier, he was recovering from those injuries. He had very, very spot minutes. I mean, they would put him in at end of games just to kind of get his confidence back, but he was more in a rehab situation. So when the opportunity came through some relationships for him to want to play here for his senior year, it was a no-brainer. And obviously, you know, knock on wood, he stays healthy, but he's been doing a tremendous job taking care of his body. He was a starter at Florida State before he got hurt. You know, his last year he was averaging about 12 and 7 through the first, I believe, 10 games of the season. So that's obviously a guy who's going to help you a lot. You have to be very, very talented to play for a Leonard Hamilton team and start and average that kind of numbers. So he's mature. He's in a good place. As long as he can stay healthy, sky's the limit for him.
Another guy that's down the stat sheet that can really trick you if you're not paying attention. And coaches scout, and it's not something I worry about with Southern staff, but if you're not paying attention to Owen Aquino, man, you probably when the game's over got to say, well, there's a reason why he's playing the second most minutes. What has he done for your program?
Yeah, so Owen was a guy who, when the minute I looked at his numbers, this is where the film aspect comes into what we were talking about. I was like, okay, I like him, but when I looked at the film, it's like I love him, I need to have him. He cares so much more about playing the game the right way and making sure his team wins than anything individual. He's probably the least selfish, most caring about winning talented player. You'll have some guys there who aren't that talented who think like that, but to have a guy who's 6'9" and athletic and built like he is to I'll look on the stat sheet sometimes and we'll be rolling in a game and we'll be over 20 minutes in the game. He's taking one shot. And like, I don't even know because he hasn't even complained because he's just trying to get other people involved. He's just trying to rebound. He's just trying to defend. So I think that's a great question. I think he's like an unsung hero of what we're doing. He's such a valuable piece. He's like, in a lot of ways, probably the most valuable piece because of all the little things he's willing to do and not care about the stat sheet. Now, if he wanted to go out every night and say, I have to have a double double, he could do that. But I think we probably wouldn't be as good of a cohesive unit. And he cares more about that. So he's got such a bright future at playing at high levels. Like Liberty was so good with him and we're so good with him. And if wherever he plays as a professional, like he's able to play at a level higher than his numbers would suggest because he's so good on the defensive end. He's such a good culture guy. But I do expect him to probably get going a little more offensively.
What will you share with a pro team that calls you about a guy like Okino? What will you make sure they know that they're getting versus what maybe let those stat sheets actually say on the scoring side?
I think they're getting a guy who anchors your defense at a very high level. Our defense has taken a jump significantly numbers wise. I mean, I think we have a long way to go on that end, but he has made that skyrocket, and he did the same thing with Liberty. He's a guy who I would tell them that I asked him one day to kind of change a little bit of what he was doing to help the team, and it was no hesitation. Whatever you need, coach. And those guys are just harder to find sometimes than the talented guys who score. I mean, they're just more rare. So that's what I would tell these teams is just pop on the film and see how this guy's helped us win, how he helped Liberty win. He's gonna help somebody else win too.
One thing that kind of had me scratching my head about your team, and we're going to get into the efficiency of scoring here in just a minute, and that didn't have me scratching, but 19 guys in your locker room, how can you manage such a big roster?
Yeah, so I mean, we actually had 20 last year, so we're on the downsize now. But we have four guys who've been grandfathered in, so because that were walk-ons last year, so we were able to get over the 15. And then we've got 15 good scholarship players. And how we manage that, again, it goes back to the character piece. These guys are great guys, and some of them, the season in terms of individually how they want things to go, it's going that way. And for some, it's probably a little less than what they wanted or expected. But man, they're such good dudes that they handle it themselves, honestly. Like I can remind them about what being a professional means. I can remind them about staying ready, because of course it's one of these guys who's right outside the rotation. They're just one little injury or foul trouble away from, hey, we need you to help us win. So I tell them those things, but they're just made the right way. I think I got to just make sure as this program continues to evolve that we're getting those kind of character guys. I think we hit that perfectly this year in the portal. So they handle it well together. They support each other. They cheer each other on.
Of all the team stats that I look at when I look at your team, I'm really impressed with your turnover rate is one half of your opponents. Your assist to turnover as a team is pretty ridiculous at 2-1, 141 assists to only 76 turnovers in 7 games. You're playing at a 70 possession pace, which is very high. But the one that really gets me, man, is the 61% field goal efficiency. Do you coach it? Do you recruit it? Is it a combination of both? How do you get your team to be so darn efficient scoring?
Yeah, so it obviously starts with the recruiting. If you don't have the right players with the right abilities, then there's nothing we're going to be able to do. But once we have that, The ability to pass is very important in that. So we're not forcing bad shots. We're making plays for each other. And then beyond that, we do spend an unusual amount of time on our skill work here. I would say we spend, maybe a whole hour of our practice on skill work, finishing at the rim, making catch and shoot shots, making free throws. I think I played professional basketball and played college basketball. I felt like at the professional level, there was a more of a focus on the individual players being ready to make shots than there were at the college level. Whereas the college level was more, the practices started to become more about your teams being ready to run a play. But then can they make the shot at the end of the play? And then how many of our plays don't even work? A lot of them, and they got to go just make a play and get a basket. Those are really the differences in games. Like Southern Illinois is going to come out and they're going to run some good stuff. High Point's going to come out and we're going to run some good stuff. Who's going to make more shots at the rim? Who's going to make more free throws? Who's going to make more catch and shoot shots? And when I think you simplify it like that, we spend a lot of time on it, But I don't want to give ourselves too much credit because these guys are pretty good walking in the door. We make sure that we got some good shooters, some highly skilled guys before they come in.
What do you make of Southern Illinois? What concerns you about this team? What's impressed you?
Yeah, I mean, their physicality. They're actually a really good team scoring from the 2-point range. They've struggled to shoot threes, but I don't think they're as bad as the numbers have suggested. I don't think they're a top tier shooting team. I don't think anyone would say that, but I don't think they're one of the bottoms in the country. I think like Steffi getting going last game is more of an indicator of them having balance with their 3-point shooting. I know that they're going to be physical on the boards. I know that they're going to play fast. I know that they're a good cutting team. They move well off the ball. They've seen a bunch of packed in defense the last few games, so it's like it's not going to be something that people are well aware of their shooting numbers. So they're well aware of trying to counter that at this point. So I think we're getting a team that's kind of battle tested, been through some tough losses, but also had a pretty good win, I thought, in their last game because they could have lost that game, but they kind of stuck together and won that thing. I think they're coming in here at a point where they're going to really give us a challenge where they are. But I'm impressed with their physicality and how fast they play.
Coach, I did scheduling when I was an assistant coach, and man, those are hours and days and months of the years that you can't get back in your life. Scheduling is hard for everybody, and it's really hard at your level. You're at a very high. College Insider has you guys like 5th or 6th in the country and probably upward trending. But how hard is scheduling at High Point? Is this a series that can continue?
Well, it is going to continue next year because it's a 2-for-1. So we are coming back, and we appreciate them wanting to play. And I would say that it's difficult to get it exactly how you want with the scheduling. We've tried to have like a high major game the last couple of years, even an MTE, and they because of the new net system, they run from it. But on the flip side, we are a little bit high major-ish in that we do buy games, which makes it easier. So, we don't face, we had very hard challenges at, say, Southern Utah when we were good there because you're not buying games. So we do buy games here and we have a lot of opportunity to play a lot of home games. And I want to give the university a ton of credit for wanting to have those home games and wanting to support us in that way. So that makes it would be nearly impossible if they didn't want to do that because you know how it gets when you're as good as us. So for us to be able to do that and then sprinkle in an MTE and then get a couple series like this with like opponents that also have trouble getting, those games kind of makes our schedule work.
Coach, thanks so much for spending time. We really appreciate you joining us. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday night.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Coach Watts, as we look at this High Point team, first off, thanks again to Coach Clayman for taking time during his week to meet up with our coach and Rodney Watson. We look forward to seeing his team tomorrow night. All right, you want to talk about efficient. It's one of those things when you look up on Ken Palm, one of the things that he does a really good job of is if you see a lot of green or light green, that's good. When you see shades of red, that's probably when you maybe need to close your eyes. There are going to be few teams, honestly, the only other team right now, and I've looked at a sheet like this point that's almost as green as Belmont because their numbers are just so efficient from an offensive standpoint, but they are top 100 in 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, free throw percentage. They make shots at all ends of the floor. They take care of the basketball, Coach Watson. They only turn it over on 12.8% of their possessions. And here's the kicker. They turn people over on 23%
Hmm.
of their possessions. That's sixth in the country in terms of how they don't turn it over, top 15 in the country in turning people over. I mean, what more can you want in a team, in all honesty? A team that makes shots behind the arc, at two, and at the free throw line. They don't turn it over, and they turn you over. I mean, that's a great recipe.
Yeah, their defense is the part that I guess I underestimated. As I think back on the game from a year ago, I didn't feel like it was the defense that was giving Southern so many problems. I was very impressed with just how they just keep, again, their bench was incredibly impressive a year ago, but it sure appears that their defensive end has really stepped up big notches. I mean, look, they have 101 steals, 101 steals in 8 games. You know, they've only had it stolen from them 37 times. Uh, 2-to-1 assist ratio as a team. Typically, if you're a point guard, if you have one point guard on your team, that's a good number. You want your point guard to be 2-to-1. Man, you get to 3-to-1, you really got something. Anything beyond that's just, you got a pro on your hands. But as a team, they're 2-to-1. Then in the efficiency side, I talked about Southern. I feel great about their 52% efficiency field goals shooting, which means, you're getting a point every other time you shoot the ball. With this group, they're 61% efficient, which is basically every 5 times the ball leaves their hand toward the rim, they're getting 3 points every 5 times it leaves their hand. Now, what does that mean for Southern, and what do those numbers really mean? It means number one, you got to take care of that basketball. Those 101 steals, those live ball steals are a big reason why their efficiency is so high, because they're not being contested in fast breaks. I mean, they're getting the ball out, and they're getting the ball up the floor on people. Southern's got to definitely eliminate live ball turnovers against this High Point team. Make them play in the half court. You'll hear Coach Mayman talk about how this team, High Point's really good at going from passing up a good shot to get a great shot. Well, you got to make them take great shots later in the possession, and you got to make sure you contest them. And then, like we've been talking time and time again, the second shot opportunity just can't be there. You've got to take away their offensive rebounding. Now, you go back to the white sheet that I look at because I'm a dinosaur, and you say, well, they're not a great offensive rebounding team. They've only got 81 and their opponents have 100. Well, that's because they don't miss very many. And that's where stats could be misleading. And if Southern's fortunate enough to contest shots and force them to miss a shot, you cannot allow them to get a second one. That's for sure.
One of the things that's amazing, again, the KenPom metrics, you can, as with anything, you can always kind of twist it a little bit to make it whatever more within your parameters of what you want to have it look like. But they have 9 players. We talked about Jorge Moreno's offensive rating on the team. Jorge Moreno is the highest on the Salukis. He would rank 10th on High Point's offensive rating so far this year. I mean, that shows you how effective they have been really on that side of the basketball. And we heard Coach Clayman talk about a lot about these guys. With a few guys I do want to pinpoint, Rob Martin, I knew he started his career out at Indiana State, was recruited by Josh Schertz and the Sycamores, just didn't quite work out at Indiana State for him. He finds a guy by the name of Brad Korn at SEMO and really thrives. And man, he has been outstanding so far this year for High Point. He is 22nd in the country out of all Division I players in terms of his assist rate. He shares the basketball at such a high clip, almost 40% in terms of his assist rate at 37.8. He also gets about 5% steals, which that's top 50 in the country. And a lot of the possessions, Coach Watson, I mean, 31.2% of the possessions, the ball is in his hands. Rob Martin really makes it go for this High Point team.
Well, there's no way those numbers can be true, Luke. You just said he averages 4 5 assists a game, and he's averaging 14.6 points a game. Wow, what an efficient, what a just a good player. And that's also the sign of a senior. And he's been the real advantage he has is he's doing all that on 25 minutes of play, and he's got a backup point guard that coach just says they can't play without Conrad Martinez because he comes in right behind him. So a really good point guard. It's again 25 minutes, 14 and a half points, and over 5 assists a game. That's and they've had one game against a non-division one school which kind of skewed their numbers a little bit. Like for instance, they're averaging with all their points combined, they're averaging just under 94 points a game. But here's the thing: you take out the game where they scored 127 points, they're still averaging 88 points. I mean, this team can really score because they don't turn it over. They turn you over. They get a lot of uncontested opportunities, as we talked about. But when you have 2 point guards, I mean, Rob Martin's great and 5'10". And a year ago, I got a chance to see him play live in a game at Southern Indiana. And my impression was he was like, I say this, as a compliment, but he was felt like his role was more of scoring. He wasn't guarding. Matter of fact, it became a possession game late with Southern Indiana, and Brad Korn had to take him out because Southern was just going at him because of his size. So when you have a backup point guard and you're a great point guard, that gives you a lot of confidence.
It was a 1 point game with UAB. UAB beat them 91-74. UAB, and that was in Birmingham, Alabama as well. That's the only loss that High Point has had this year. 91-74 was the final. UAB beat them 34-18 in the final 10 minutes of that game. That's when UAB got their separation, and we honestly kind of saw that firsthand as well. What type of benefit could that be for the Salukis as a staff, knowing you at least have one common opponent and one common opponent within recent of playing each other? Again, SIU is a completely different team than High Point is, but you can at least be like, well, we know how we attacked UAB in this way. You can see how they did it, and possibly find ways too that UAB had success that you'll try to mimic in your own right.
Well, I think there is, I think from a player standpoint, when you watch film, you look at the guys that you're going to be matched up with and matched up against. And then each player's looking at, we'll talk a lot about Cameron Fletcher, 6'7". We'll talk about Owen Okino, 6'9". So the big guys are looking at them saying, okay, here's what they did against the UAB guys. Here's what the UAB guys did against them. And I know what that feels like because I went against that guy. And the Southern knows the aggressive inside play and how it really hurt Southern down in Jacksonville when they played UAB. So I think that part will help. I think what really helps Southern going in this game is they've seen Memphis on Wednesday. They've seen UAB on the previous Monday. They've seen length and quickness and toughness and all those things. So they've seen the things that High Point brings in terms of quick hands, aggressive defense, very active hands. Coach talked about deflections are a big part. That's something Rick Pitino always measures. Something Bruce Weber brought to our program. That was part of our play hard chart. If you got your hand on a ball deflection, that shows that you're playing hard. That's a measure of playing hard. And that's a big part of High Point. Southern's been through that this week. So they have recent muscle memory of what they need to do to take care of the basketball. Southern did a nice job of taking care of the ball against Memphis. Not so much against Jacksonville, especially in that first half. I'm not going to make any excuses, but not many teams played well after Thanksgiving. When you really look at teams that we followed and I looked at Purdue played Eastern Illinois, and they got away from them, but that wasn't a game that it was a signature game where you just set your starters and play the guys off the bench. I mean, everybody coming off Thanksgiving has a little bit of a weirdness about them, but thank goodness Southern's played a tough schedule getting ready for this one, because I'll say it live, and I'll be glad to eat these words too. I do think this is going to be the best non-conference game Southern's going to be faced with, and that takes nothing away from Richmond, and UT Martin's really good. But I think this team, from what we've seen, they just have a full package of team play and individual play.
Yeah, right now, if you had to look, Memphis is 70 in KenPom, High Point at 78, right around that same number. And of course, you'll get the ultimate gauge, right? Because UAB plays Memphis, of course, within their league in the American Conference. So we'll have some more data as that goes throughout the year. Really, the other players that I wanted to mention before we kind of put the bow on it, Cameron Fletcher is a phenomenal player. It's a name that Saluki fans should probably know just because he comes from Vashon High School, which, of course, was the same high school that Kennard Davis was at as well. To this point in his career, he has played, and this will be his 75th game coming up on Wednesday night. He has starred every game this year. He's averaging almost 20 points per game, right at 19 points per game. Just so effective as well for this High Point squad.
Smart player. He knows where he scores. That's near the restriction arc. He's taken 24 threes. He makes about one a game. So he'll take some to stretch the defense. He's great at the free throw line, 84%, averaging 8 rebounds. Their second leading offensive rebounder, big body. Talk about a great get. He started at Florida State, went to Xavier. He had fought injuries. He got injured at Florida State. I don't think he really felt like he got fully healed or right at Xavier. What a great pickup for High Point. This guy is I compared him to Strickland a little bit, but I think he's even better player than Strickland from North Dakota State. Strickland strictly went to the basket, especially in one-on-one situation. It'll be interesting to see how Southern approaches Cameron Fletcher. Do you double team him on the drive? Like when he puts it on the bounce, do you force him into being an assist guy? He's only got 6 assists to 11 turnovers. We'll see how Southern goes about it, but this guy's a real talent.
It's going to be a tough game for the Salukis. Again, tip will be at 6 Central on Wednesday night, which means our pregame coverage will begin at 5 o'clock as the Salukis will try to win for the first time ever in the state of North Carolina. Coach Watson's been a part of a lot of these games. Of course, the majority of them have been against Charlotte. Played them in December of 94, got beat 76-70, played them in December of 96, got beat 71-62, played them again in December of 2002, got beat 80-67, and tried it again in December of 2007, came up short 71-56. The only other game in the state of North Carolina, by the way, was December of 1960 when the Salukis played against North Carolina State. 88-69 was the final score there. Again, this High Point team, there are 19 Division I teams in the state of North Carolina. It's maybe hard to fathom there's that many. Right now, they are only behind Duke, number 2 in the rankings in terms of metrics. 24, North Carolina, NC State 36, Wake Forest 54, and here they are. Right behind them. So they're one of the best teams in the state of North Carolina. It's going to be if Southern finds a way to even, make it a very competitive game down to the end. And my goodness, if you find a way to win on the road, Coach Nagy says it. If you want to be a championship team, if you want to be a tough team, you got to win on the road. And man, this is going to be a tough matchup on Wednesday for the Salukis. We hope you join us then. For the Coach Ronnie Watson, I am Luke Martin saying so long, Saluki Nation. We'll talk to you Wednesday night here from High Point, North Carolina. Go Dogs.
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.